Wendy, how are you tonight and what brings you out?
Coming out to eat. It's dinner time.
And any reactions to your medical report that does hold up the dementia diagnosis?
No, and my attorneys are highly upset.
Wendy Williams is the rare celebrity who can turn silence into noise. For months, the chatter was louder than her voice. Rumors, petitions, think pieces, until the paperwork hit. A fresh medical exam, batteries of neurotests and brain imaging, and then the line that matters most, her guardianship stays. Translation: the court believes the health picture hasn't changed because the exam reaffirmed frontotemporal dementia and aphasia, conditions that crush language and impulse control and turn daily life into a maze. It's clinical, cold, and decisive, the kind of update that doesn't trend because it hurts. But it decides everything that comes next. And yet Wendy, ever the headline alchemist, won't let the narrative crown anyone else. This is the woman who built daytime on a single take and a raised brow. Even as filings and statements stacked up, she pushed back in her own way, insisting earlier this year that she passed with flying colors on competency tests, her words, her bravado, her refusal to shrink. In a city that eats fragility for breakfast, she sounded like a fighter who still knows the ring. The medical file says one thing, the mouth that made "How you doing?" a battle cry says another. That tension, official diagnosis versus on-air defiance, is the spark lighting the powder. Let's be honest, the guardianship isn't just paperwork. It's a lock on money, movement, and medical decisions. Power concentrated in a stranger's pen. It began in 2022 after Wells Fargo moved to freeze accounts, whispering unsound mind, and a New York judge set a guardian over her finances and health. That origin story still haunts her because it framed the last 3 years. Wendy versus a system that calls itself protective while moving keys she can't touch. The court says protect, Wendy hears prison. And in show business, prison is any storyline you didn't write. So what did this new exam really do? It hardened the lines. The examiner's opinion, anchored by scans, tests, and clinical notes, arrived with a request to extend control into the fall, while legal storms swirl in parallel courts. Doctors speak, judges nod, the calendar creeps forward. The effect is brutal in its simplicity. The status quo survives. For Wendy, that means the war goes on at a pace she didn't pick, under rules she didn't write. For the public, it means a darker story. A woman famous for owning her mic is now fighting to own her choices. But here's the twist that keeps this saga combustible. Wendy isn't fading out of frame. She shows up, she smiles, she announces herself with gowns, lip gloss, and that queenly posture that says, "I'm still here." Every entrance is a rebuttal. Every headline about a diagnosis is followed by a citing that refuses pity. She is both the patient in the filing and the star at the door, and the contradiction is the point. Fans see resilience, critics see denial, lawyers see evidence, the court sees risk. Wendy Williams sees a mirror, and a woman who refuses to be narrated by anyone else. The legal pylon is a tangle of petitions, counterclaims, and Hail Marys that would break a law student's spirit. Start with the loudest boom, Kevin Hunter's $250 million lawsuit aimed at The Guardian and a small constellation of past advisors and institutions, accusing them of weaponizing guardianship, mismanaging money, and boxing Wendy into civil death. He says it's about freeing her. Critics call it nuclear theatre. Either way, it puts the guardianship on trial in the court of public opinion, where Wendy has always been strongest. Then there's the separate battle over where is Wendy Williams?
Well, first and foremost, like I said, personally, what we were going through behind the scenes was a lot. I mean, I take accountability for my actions, for what's obviously out there. But what we was going through when it comes to our health issues and whatnot, it was a lot. And it was solely on me.
The 2024 Lifetime doc that turned her lowest moments into content and ignited a legal brawl. The Guardian sued, arguing exploitation. The networks countersued, citing speech and process. Now layer in the fresh medical evaluation and legal maneuvering to pause or extend pieces of that fight until judges decide who actually gets to call shots in Wendy's name. It's not just a case, it's a chess clock. Each hearing drains time from a woman who built a career on immediacy. A funny thing happens when courts write one story and cameras catch another. The public starts drafting its own. Enter the birthday arc. July in New York, and Wendy turns 61 with a grin, a dress, and a dinner. First Delmonico's, then more stops. The city is runway. The comments screaming, "She looks amazing." This is not a recluse being managed behind frosted glass. This is a celebrity reminding you she can still fill a doorway. The legal file says supervision. The sidewalk footage says presence. That duality is dizzying and, frankly, effective. Then came the post-exam pop-up. Out in Manhattan again after the fresh medical findings made headlines. Dinner at Tucci, escorted by restaurateur Max Tucci, smiling, speaking, insisting her attorneys weren't thrilled with the coverage. It's classic Wendy. Answer a filing with an outfit. Answer a diagnosis with a table for four. Answer a whisper with a wave. You can call it spin, you can call it survival, but every time she steps out, she yanks the center of gravity away from paper and back to personality. That's why this saga won't sit still. These public check-ins aren't random. They're a choreography of defiance. You see the scooter one week, then no scooter the next. You see guarded walks turn into glam entrances. You see the comments tilt from pity to praise to suspicion and back again. And all the while, the guardianship clock keeps ticking, because birthdays don't move court calendars, and court calendars don't measure charisma. The filings remain blunt. Dementia, aphasia, evaluation, extension. The sightings remain seductive. Good hair, good mood, I'm fine. The truth may be both, and that's the vortex swallowing the conversation whole. Zoom out and you'll notice a brutal through line: money. Guardianships are supposed to protect. Critics say they also control. Wendy's estate, her future earnings, her brand value, every piece gets touched by whoever holds the pen. That's why exes sue, networks counter, lawyers posture, and fans chant. It's not just about access to a phone, it's about access to a legacy. And the louder the outside world yells, "Free her," the more the court digs into tests and timelines, because emotion doesn't change neurology. Only data does. For Wendy, the data is the dragon, the dinner is the sword. So where does this go? November is a mile marker, not a finish line. Another exam could happen. Another motion could land. Another birthday could pass with another cake and another clip that convinces half the internet she's absolutely fine. Maybe she is, some days. That's the cruelty of FTD and aphasia. They can be invisible until they aren't, incremental until they hit like a truck, stable at brunch and terrifying by dusk. The court must plan for the worst. Wendy performs for the best. Between them, a fandom refreshes, a city watches, and a woman fights to define one more chapter on her own terms. Until then, remember the rule of Wendy Williams. The story is never just what's filed, it's what's felt. She wants out. The court says no. The public says prove it. And the camera, merciless and faithful, keeps rolling as Wendy walks toward it, chin high, eyes bright, daring the system to blink feuds. Meanwhile, the new exam didn't just rubber stamp the past, it pushed the runway forward. Requests to keep the structure in place into November 2025, while judges weigh whether the current Guardian remains and whether Wendy still needs one at all. Her camp broadcasts confidence, filings broadcast caution. Between them lies a woman whose instincts are showtime and whose reality is signatures. The paradox is painful. If she's fine, why the control? If she's not, why the spotlight? The answer is the ugliest word in guardianship: capacity, a moving target that gets scored by strangers in rooms without cameras. And yet, this is Wendy. Even mid-lawsuit, she swats at narratives like flies. She claps back at her ex, rejects the idea that anyone speaks for her, and telegraphs a single, relentless thesis. I want out. Courts don't move at the speed of desire. Wendy always has. That mismatch fuels the rage, the confusion, the fandom civil war. One side says protect, the other says free her, the court says wait. In that vacuum, rumors multiply, and every dinner becomes a referendum. If you're here for the truth behind the filings, not the fluff, smash like, drop your take, and subscribe. This is Miss Cathy Knows, and we read the receipts out loud. Keep it locked, because the next hearing, the next sighting, the next I passed with flying colours could flip this story in a heartbeat.